Welcome to Blue Monday from the Blue Room. It's just me and Dave this week because I think Rodger's off to the Cheltenham Festival, isn't he, Dave?
He is, yeah. He's giving us all sorts of tips and all that as well, isn't he? He's like he's well into all of this stuff, isn't he? So yeah,
Yeah. He sent us a voice note with a load of tips, so I think we'll lash that on the end of the show. Yeah, in case anyone likes that horse racing caper. He's got a very good voice for it as well, hasn't he?
Oh yeah, absolutely. He feels like he should be commentating on it. He
Yeah.
absolutely does. Yeah.
Yeah, I was staggered when he sent the voice note through. It was like listening to like Sky News or Sky Sports News or something.
Like professional, very professional, wasn't it? That he's talking about it.
It was very, very polished, is Rog. Yeah, so we'll stick that on at the end. But for this show, we're going to go into, unfortunately, the Wolves game. We'll try and talk a little bit about that. Not that there's that much to talk about, I don't think. And then we're going to look at the players who are the contracts are coming to an end in June. There's a big list, 13 players out of contract. Regardless of what you think of any of them, I don't think we can get rid of all of them, can we, Dave? But we'll come on to that later. Right, this Wolves game then felt like an opportunity missed to me, but like really big opportunity missed because we actually made Wolves look all right. I thought, what were your thoughts on the game? I know you did post-match with Matt.
Yeah, I think you're right. It felt... I hate to say it and I hate to feel it, but it did feel like the first of what will be about 10 games of, we need to get to the end of the season now because we're safe. And I just don't want that to be the way. I don't think it will because Goodison saves us from that point of view. But yeah, I mean, everyone's conceded now that we're safe. What is it, 16 points clear now?
Yeah.
It's a non-issue now. On that side of things, I know we've got a manager who won't let us sort of rest on our laurels, sort of thing. But that match felt that way. I mean, having said that, we probably should have won it. Beto has that chance. Harrison scores. We can see the goal, which is, it was a hassle to concede a goal like that we did from them. But I think what it did indicate was they're a really poor side.
Yeah,
because Everton were by far away from being the best, and yet they were still struggling against us. They're nothing without Cunha as well. Didn't really present any sort of threat whatsoever. Can't remember other than the goal and Pickford having to do anything at all. I don't know. I think there was one blasted at him, wasn't it? Like hit directly at him. But that's all of anything.
Yeah, he made one save, I think.
And that's anything of note really that he went and did. And then it just after they described it as feeling quite flat. The kind of game, and me and Matt both agreed, how much would we have given for this game to have been the situation when you go back just before Christmas? You'd be absolutely, if I said that to you, you'd be like, oh, we're playing a mundane half-assed, doesn't really matter fixture on a Saturday night at 8 o'clock away at Wolves. It'd be like all of us, like biting our nails and all that sort of thing. But the fact you're going there, it's interesting, isn't it, the mentality of a fan? Because you're like, you're not happy that we didn't win that game, and it feels like a massive relief. Albeit, after it, there's a knee-jerk reaction. Like people were tweeting me saying, "Oh, you can't say that we played well, we were shite, and all this and all that." And I was like, keep it in perspective. I think if we played poorly, which I don't think we did play poorly, I felt that it was just it wasn't a friendly kind of game, but it was edging towards that for me. You didn't have people throwing themselves about. Pace of the game wasn't always there. Alcaraz came on and then it did spark it to life. But yeah, I mean, it was just you going through the motions of a match where you'd probably take a point, they take a point. I was saying after about an hour, I bet you Moyes behind. Well, certainly internally, Moyes and Pereira probably looking at each other saying, "We'll shake hands now, take the point and go." They're safe. Well, 6 points clear of Ipswich, who look like they're completely gone. It's just, I mean, it was. It's getting to the stage where it's hard. It's difficult games. I shouldn't really say this, but the difficult games to really massively assess without having the context of how well we've done since Moyes has come in.
Yeah, I think the big frustration for me was like the run we've been on. We've beaten Palace away and we've beaten Brighton away. Now, going into the weekend's games, I think Palace was second in the form table, Everton were third, and Brighton were fourth. So we've beaten 2 real form teams at their own ground. Wolves went into this in pretty bad form. They've not got a good home record, not got a good record at all this season. So it did feel like an opportunity. But the way I looked at it was a little bit of a wake-up call for all of us. We've been sort of, we are a fan base who notoriously go really high when it's good, and we go really low when it's bad.
Haven't we?
Exactly, because it's been great. And I think this was just a wake-up call that, this squad is very limited. And Moyes has done really well to get that extra out of this squad to make sure we're safe. We don't really care about that game, do we? A draw was frustrating. We didn't win it. Had we still been around the 23, 25 point mark, we'd be looking at that thinking we needed to win that. It would have been, there would have been a lot of jeopardy. So I think the fact that the squad has pulled it out the bag these last 6-8 weeks or whatever, I think now we just sort of take a step back and maybe think about, do you know what? This squad, it's probably a lower mid-table squad. It should never have been in relegation danger, really. But it's still not very good, is it?
Do you know what's interesting about this? It's funny the way things work, isn't it? Because if we weren't near a relegation battle, then we wouldn't have David Moyes as manager. We wouldn't have had Sean Dyche go. If we were in this stage right now, which is taking 4 or 5 wins to get us in a comfortable position, Sean Dyche should still be the Everton manager. It is funny how things work in your favour, isn't it? Because I'm pretty sure even if we were in a decent run of form, yes, you'd have most fans saying he doesn't deserve to be sacked. But we'd be doing the Blue Monday, we'd be doing the byline, all of our shows that we do would be like, do you know what? It's really not a good watch. Whereas Everton, the main thing for me that I'm taking from Moyes is you're looking at this now where Everton are playing good football. Everton are a good side to watch play. I think most neutrals would agree with that. And that's a big difference. If you're not particularly positive about the way in which things have ended up here, and you're looking at these games that meanders at the end of the season, then you sort of like when things change, you take it for granted, and you really shouldn't here, because that wasn't a completely impressive performance from Everton at Wolves. It was just a comfortable one, I would say. Where Everton didn't look like they completely had to go full pelt to go and win this game. You get to that stage in a season, I'll just refer back to what I said then, you get to that point with a new manager, with a new stadium, with a new owner. What would we have given for that, Les? That'd be just a pipe dream at the back end of last year. And now we just entered March in the last week, yet we're sitting here talking about it. So I was saying to a lot of friends there, you do have to count your blessings sometimes when you're in that sort of dire situation we've been in for pretty much 4 years. Just take it back and have some perspective rather than fuming about getting a 1-1 draw away at Wolves.
Well, yeah, and you know what? It keeps the unbeaten the unbeaten run going, doesn't it? It's and that feels quite important that we do keep that momentum going. So if we can do that in our ways, it's a cliche, win our home games, which we've got some really big home games coming up. We still got City, Arsenal, Forest, all sorts of top 6 teams. And then we've got Southampton and Ipswich. So there's a lot to look forward to there now, isn't there? It's like we don't need anything from any of those games now. If we don't pick up another point until the end of the season, we won't go down. So it's nice to go into those games and we can just finally enjoy them at Goodison, because I think that was towards the start of the season. We've spoken about this a lot, haven't we, about our feelings going into Goodison. And I think we were so on edge because the result was so important that we couldn't really enjoy the games. Or that's how I felt anyway. I don't know about you. And it feels like now we can go in relaxed and just see what happens.
Yeah, because there's no permutations anymore. I think we all go in with a different attitude in these games. Like Goodison's front and centre. Goodison's the most important thing now, rather than you have to go in there and you have to take 3 points. I mean, let's face it, we'll all have a cry and a moan if Everton went and lost their last 6 games at Goodison, which isn't going to happen. Or maybe in traditional Everton style it does, and we get battered by Southampton on the final game at Goodison. But
flip-flops.
Exactly. That's it. That saying's there now, isn't it? I think you'll see many people mention that there as the last few the last few games of the season go on there. But you got West Ham there. I'm sure Moyes would want to give them one, given the situation that happened there at the end. They're another side you can probably pick off and finish above them. And I think that I like that there's quite a considerable amount of our fans who want Everton to finish as high as possible as a priority for them. And I agree with that. I agree with that. I think, because the people talking quite heavily about, to support that argument, it's the finances that you get per place. I don't know what it is it 3 million, 4 million quid, which adds to the coffers for us. And, whilst for many sides, that financial clout they've already got, so it doesn't particularly matter to them to get 3 million quid extra. For Everton, it does, simply because you get that income coming in, you can go and spend it. And it's still up in the air what we're allowed to spend in the summer. So, every little bit helps there, I think, like a Tesco advert, when we're at that stage of the campaign. But it's so nice, Les, because it's look out your window. I know it's due to go freezing in the next couple of days, but it's been spring. Spring has sprung, hasn't it, in the last few days? Going to Goodison on those days, this stage of the season, maybe a little bit later, maybe like a few weeks later than this, when you get to spring, proper spring, and Everton are in contention for something, or Everton have to fight for something, as we have done, to stay in the league. That as a fan, that feeling going when the sun's out to a 3 o'clock kickoff on a Saturday, they're a rarity for us these days. And that's why, like, I'd reiterate to most fans, go and enjoy it. Go and enjoy Goodison as much as you can. The result, for once, is probably secondary to what Goodison is to us all now. And that's so much more important than it originally was there, because you imagine, Les, how we'd all feel going into those last couple of games, going into Southampton there, having to beat City, having to beat Arsenal, having to beat Forest, who were a Champions League side, having to do that. That's where we'd all be shitting ourselves, like we did with Bournemouth, like we did with that dreadful Palace game where we were all like, people fell apart on that at half time. None of that's there. The burden's been lifted off our shoulders, and I just think it's been really interesting now, because you've got a completely different dynamic with the manager. I don't think Moyes would be willing to let up on any of this. He'd be relentless with what he's going to be saying to these players. He'll want to see what the best of what we've seen in those last 8 games where we've been unbeaten. And I'm all for that. You've got a manager there that won't stop. He'll be relentless. I mean, do you remember how important it was for us to go into the summer with momentum and starting to think, you know what, where Everton go in the last few games is probably crucial to the players they're able to go and buy or loan. It feels like they were in that situation now. Everton are going to be an attractive proposition for players if they finish mid-table, if they finish 10th, 11th, 12th.
It looks like the highest we're going to get is 13th. I think Brentford are on 38. So that feels just a little bit out of touch for us. But if we did, that would likely put us ahead of Man United and Tottenham. Now imagine, say at the start of the season, you're going to finish ahead of Man United and Tottenham, and you end up 13th. It's been a bit of a mad season in that regard. But I think that would be good to finish with that momentum if we could get that 13th spot. I mean, I know it's not to write home about, but it would kind of put us on par with last season. So real terms, last season we finished on 48 points, which would have put us 12th, I think, underneath Brighton. Now, obviously, you want to make those incremental gains each season. So I think if we can finish around that mark, I mean, it's another 15 points. So it's a big ask, I suppose.
Yeah.
But that would be nice, wouldn't it, to just have that progression? And then, as you say, we're in a bit of a unique situation here, whereby it's not, although these games are effectively dead rubbers because they don't count towards anything in terms of relegation. In terms of building that momentum for the summer, going into the new ground, these are all going to be things that you can attract new players with, isn't it? You finish the season as a formed team, with a manager who the board is showing faith in. Everyone seems happy around the club. Going into a new ground, that's got to be a big pull, hasn't it, for getting players in, I think.
Oh, man, massively so. I think it's huge, because I think you'd add to the way Everton play onto where they finish in the league as well. You couple that, and you're thinking that probably, if you're a player there with Everton are in for it, and you've probably got a number of clubs who are trying to bring in, let's say, foreign players from different leagues, Everton are going to look far more attractive when that player is particularly being offered, say, several clubs that they'd like to, that there'd be other clubs that are coming in for them. Everton are going to be a much more impressive proposition there if they finish high in the league, and the way in which they play. I mean, you look at that now. This league's astonishing this season. It's absolutely bonkers because
Yeah.
the battle for fourth now. Well, you throw third and fourth in there, wouldn't you? Bournemouth missed a massive chance by getting a draw 2-0 up at Spurs. They're going to regret that, I think, for the rest of the line. Because that could have put them fourth, couldn't it, if they'd have gone and won that, or fifth. And then you look lower down there. I think you're right. I think you can cut that part of the league off there from 13th downwards, because Brentford are 4 ahead of Spurs. Spurs are in all sorts of issues. But the other stuff that's really interested me, Les, is that we've lost 9 league games. We've drawn a hell of a lot. We've lost 9 league games. So Manchester City.
Yeah.
And as much as the narrative with Manchester City is they've just completely imploded, and you've got Pep Guardiola coming out and saying it's not important to qualify for the Champions League. I think he's just trying to find more and more excuses these days, and he's become quite embarrassing with that.
Yeah.
When he's normally been like the safety blanket of Liverpool not winning the Premier League. Now, do you know what I mean? He's in that situation where he's like, well, we haven't got a chance of this. That doesn't matter. We haven't got a chance of that. That doesn't matter. But for Everton to have lost the same amount of games as Manchester City again, to reiterate, what would you say about that happening? It just
this is the thing, isn't it? So it's like Saturday's game was frustrating because they're the games that you want to turn draws into wins. But the whole thing about Everton's survival these last couple of seasons has been that they've turned defeats into draws. So games where we may have been beaten, we've managed to squeak out a draw. So if you look at our stats against Wolves, Wolves have won 6, we've won 7. Wolves have now drawn 5, we've drawn 12. They've lost 17, we've lost 9. So those draws that Everton are picking up, that Wolves are losing, that's what puts you clear of relegation. And did the same last season. We went through that massive run of games without winning, but we did draw a lot in that, and that's what sort of keeps your head above water. The task for next season, though, is obviously those games. That's where you want to turn them into wins, and that's how you push up the table. I think that's just the issue, isn't it, with the club?
Yeah, I think it's really interesting. Yeah, sorry, I was just going to say. That's all right. I was just going to say to you about that. Those 12 draws, you can take them into perspectives, can't you? Really, Everton getting a point somewhere where you think they're not going to get it, that's really positive. But then you think about games perhaps on Saturday where you think, you know what, we probably should have won that, and it's a hell of a lot frustrating there. So it's you edge to one side or the other with that sort of thing. But with that amount of draws there, I mean, we've got 2 more draws than anybody else in the league, and I'm just referring to what you were talking about there in how we've gone and got those, how we've gone about getting those. I think it's interesting that the dynamic that's changed here, because Everton, that Man United game, which was an Everton victory by all intents and purposes, the fact that we got fucked over by a referee, they're the things that happen there if you look a bit deeper at how you've gone and got those draws. But the interesting thing, and I think it's something that we've spoken about quite a lot, certainly in recent years, in recent seasons, is the amount of possession Everton have. Now, we didn't have more possession than Wolves with a counter-attacking side now, which you wouldn't say Everton were too far away from that under Sean Dyche, but in a very, very particularly different way, as in set pieces, as in, putting the ball, long balls, 50, 60-yard balls from Tarkowski trying to find Calvert-Lewin. We're worlds apart from that now. Yeah, we're still getting those results, but I think you have to look a little bit deeper into how and which we're performing to get the results that might well have been the same under Sean Dyche. And I think that's crucial for all of us to see on the eye what we're watching at games.
Yeah.
But for Moyes as well, because you're then thinking we probably should have won that. No, we just about scraped a draw there. Everton have done well under Sean Dyche to go and get a draw for the way in which we play. So having less of the ball has become the same amount of possession, perhaps. But when we do get possession, we've got an effective outlet and an effective counter-attacking side. Now, you look when Alcaraz comes on and he sets that up for Beto.
Yeah,
that's what he can offer there, and it's really interesting. One of the discussion points that me and Matt had was it feels it's Decore or it's Alcaraz, and the players that are out in terms of and Dyer's out, McNeil's still got to come back. All of a sudden, you start looking at this, the angle at which you're looking at Everton now, and you've probably got half a dozen decent attacking players here that you can mix in and about. You can alter their positions. You know, Lindstrom, Jack Addison probably had the best game of his life for us, even though he was crap other than the goal he scored. Everton have got players there, effective players who you've got a squad who you can choose from there. And again, that's something that we felt like we were worlds apart from not too long ago. So yeah, the feeling of our perspective, the feeling of the narrative that Everton have got right now is completely altered. And I don't think I've certainly not fully appreciated it because it's something that is just as big as the results we've gone and got.
Yeah, it's a great shout because it's worlds apart the way we're playing, isn't it? You know, you look like, and I think though this is the issue now, isn't it? For me, Alcaraz has got to start games now because we look so much more effective with him on the pitch because he's just an exciting, dynamic player, a bit like Ndiaye is as well.
Yeah,
just kind of think then if Ndiaye comes back and like you say, McNeil comes back, you know, the fact that McNeil was basically our sole creative source under Sean Dyche and he's not played up like for the best part of the season, it sort of shows you that we've had to, you know, Moyes has certainly come in and tried different avenues. Alcaraz has made a big impact and Ndiaye the same.
But how many times?
That's the conversation we need to have now.
I was just going to say, how many times have you looked at things now and thought how different we can put that sort of line up there? So I was only thinking like on Saturday, McNeil coming back and Ndiaye coming back there, you've got the perfect shape for like a 4-2-3-1, where you've got say you've got Irabunum next to Garner in the midfield there, or James Garner and the other Garner. You've got them two, and then you could put like McNeil in the middle of Ndiaye and Alcaraz, or Alcaraz in the middle of those three, and then you've got your striker up front. And all
three of them can switch.
Exactly right. That's spot on. Having that versatility, it's a different Everton we're looking at, Les. It's completely different, and it hasn't taken. Well, obviously, it's taken a long time to get there, but it shows you how short that Sean Dyche was making this, and I'm all for it. It makes David Moyes look even better, even though it was probably you know we should have done this sort of thing. That's not to take it away from him, but it gives him more credit, if you get what I mean.
Yeah, I mean it's common sense, isn't it? You know,
yeah, exactly that.
I don't understand why managers are so dogmatic and tied to systems. You've got to go in there, like you look at what's happening at Man United. You've got to go in there, look at the players you've got, make the best of them, and then if you've got a system you want to play, you work on that in the transfer windows and stuff. So I think Sean Dyche was just too rigid. Jake O'Brien's the perfect example, isn't he? The fact that he didn't play him because you know,
I mean, what a find he is.
He was brilliant on Saturday, by the way. I thought.
Yeah,
he's just getting better.
I love him. I love watching him. I think he's a fantastic talent, and the attitude he has as well. I think the only interview that I've seen of his was the week when he scored against Brentford, and he's asked about it, and it was the most sort of mundane interview. And he's from Cork, isn't he? And it's seen a lot of blues from that neck of the woods who are saying, yeah, that's what lads are generally like there. It's sort of, you know, he's not going to give you the best interview because he just wants to crack on with his career. He wants to get as involved as he possibly can. I think he come out and said that now he feels much more comfortable at Everton because working with Moyes and various things like that. Why is it taking this long, really? And, you know, I try to, the psychological issue for all of us as fans, isn't it, of what's past, what's been and past. And you look at someone like Dyche there, and I'd love to know what that man thinks, just out of interest.
Yeah.
When he watches Everton now and he's sitting at home and looking at it, I mean, it's made me look at him and think, are you actually thick? How obvious if some of these things looked. Either that or Jake O'Brien just decided to turn up at training when Dyche has left and started realising that he's a footballer, which obviously isn't what's happened there. He'll have been going as hard as he can to try and get a position in that side when we got him and when Dyche was the manager. Lo and behold, you get a change of manager there, and it's like, do you know what? You haven't seen what's been right in front of you. And that's obviously cost him his job. And for Moyes must come in, you know, and as good as he's been, as good as he is, he must have looked at that squad, seen those players when he first met them, had a look around them in the first few training sessions and thought, wow, obviously not saying this is easy, but saying we've got the tools here in which to make Everton a comfortable, effective
Yeah.
Premier League side. And it's this, like you said, that word simplicity there, which again, I don't want to take that away from Moyes, but the meaning of that has been something that Everton have lacked for so long.
Yeah, it is. It's just like we've mentioned on other shows, haven't we? It's just the little changes he's made. It's just made everything sort of click, just for what we need. As I say, we're still not world beaters as we showed on Saturday night, but
yeah,
I think with Jake O'Brien, we've been quite lucky that he never went in January, because there must have been serious conversations going from him, not least to get off, because it just wasn't happening for him. Which leads us nicely onto the second part of the show, where we're going to look at players who are out of contract on June 30th, 2025. 13 players out of contract. So we'll just go through these. We'll go from the top. Dominic Calvert-Lewin, do you keep him? Do you give him a new deal? Does he sign a new deal? I think let him go.
So are we doing this in a twofold, going over these players, as in what you want him to do or what you think he will do?
I reckon just what we want him to do.
What would you want?
Do you want it? Because you can't really second guess that, can you? Because apparently he's had a contract on the table. He won't sign it, but you never know. If we end the season, well, he might turn around and go ahead then. But I don't think I'd want him to now.
I'm going to controversially say I want to keep him.
Okay.
Only as an element of security, because we don't know I mean, I think it's really interesting, because if he does leave, obviously he's going to have his own choice whether he wants to or whether he doesn't, and it looks by and large that he does want to leave. But let's say, for instance, he wanted to stay, and then Everton let go of him, and maybe obviously he goes out on a free. That would be a positive indication to me, because it means Everton have got money to go and get a striker. Everton have got an intention to go and use that as probably top of their list to go and recruit a one or two strikers. So that would indicate a positivity thing for me. But with that in mind, we're not used to the transfer window for quite some time now. So how Everton go and operate this, and look, I'm really I'm in the camp of Thelwell. We could talk about him all day of how difficult his job was and all that, but he knew about it when he came in. That's why I'll ultimately say that he wasn't great. Let's face it, to say it quite politely. This new team that's coming in, the structure that the club have spoken about last week and when they announced it, be really interested to see how that works. Yeah. So going round in circles there, I would still keep Calvert-Lewin, and I'd get him on. It wouldn't happen, but I'd get him on a 1-year contract. He's not going to stay if you offer him that, but ideally I'd get him on that, or a 2-year deal, as minimal as you can get him as an Everton striker. He's 27 years old now. He's at that crossroads in his career, where he probably, you go back 2 or 3 years, he probably wanted to leave Everton anyway to go to a better side, who's in a better prospect of being at Everton and ultimately being part of the team that saved us from relegation. So I'd keep him, if only to just be part of a various selection and variety that we've got up front. So I'm going to be controversial, because I know so many times now I'm going to get ripped apart by people, listeners, and it's funny when you read the comments on Spotify of ours, and people are saying, "What's Downey saying there? He needs to get off the show. Get Keith back on." I just think it's hilarious. It's so funny. So yeah, I'm keeping Dom.
Yeah, fair enough. Do you think any deal would have to be on? And again, he probably wouldn't sign this, but reduced terms, because he's a big earner. He's got injury problems still, quite clearly, even though he played, a big chunk of this season before he got injured, but then he wasn't scoring. So it's kind of like, I just don't think he's worth the money he's on.
The interesting point I'd make to this, and I know we're going to crack on to the other 12, but it says here on transfermarket.co.uk, he's got market value at 22 million. Now, everyone would scoff at that right now, thinking no, because he's been that shite for a long time. English striker in his peak, or he should be in his peak, 22 million. I'd sort of look at it along the same lines of what Solanke was like when Liverpool got rid of him to go to Bournemouth, and now he's number 9 for the Spurs, as difficult as they do, and he's been a success there.
Yeah.
So I do think he's the kind of player that if he leaves, you're probably looking at him at some point where it does click for him somewhere else, and you're thinking, do you know what, we probably should have kept him, but obviously it's in the benefit of hindsight when if and when that happens. But yeah, I mean, just to go back around it, yeah, keep him and squad striker. Again, he won't accept that though.
Right. Oral Mangala. Now I don't know if he's gone back, and the loan's been terminated, has it?
I'm not entirely sure about that, but either way, it doesn't particularly matter, does it? Because he's not going to play between now and the end of the season.
Yeah.
I don't think. I think we've seen positivity for a positive approach from him. We've seen decent games. He seems quite a comfortable midfield player, which is everything we need. Have you seen him enough to go and spend money on him? No. Would you take him back on loan? Yeah. I think that's where I'm at with him, sort of on sitting on the fence about him, really, which nobody really wants to hear.
No,
But I wouldn't go and spend money on him, Les. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, I think it's fair enough. I think he probably does offer more. Well, he offers more stability than James Garner. I don't think he's got the passing range of James Garner at all.
Oh.
But he offers more stability next to Garner Gay in that midfield. So I think, another season on loan. I think I'd go with that as well. Like you say, we've not seen enough of him to go and spend the money on him, really.
It's interesting what you've said there, Les, about the dynamic between him and James Garner. Because James Garner, it's a cliche thing that many fans say when you've had a player out so long, but he does feel like a new signing to me, particularly where Moyes is in him as well, because we've seen him in all sorts of positions under Dyche. And yeah, he has versatility. He was great. He had a couple of man of the match performances at right back at times, but he's a midfield player and he's a good passer of the ball, and that's why he'd be put in there ahead of Mangala. But again, I mean, it's throwing in somebody who, you know, he'll get a game, or both of them will get a game. Injuries, you've got obviously, I think Garner, when we talk about him there, he's a no-brainer to keep, even though he's the age of 35. Do you know what I mean? So you still need players there.
Yeah.
Step in. He's not, let's face it, I think might be doing him a disservice, but just again, he's not going to be a regular 30-odd game midfielder for Everton next season. That's just my point of view.
Yeah, we'll go on to him then. I think he definitely deserves a contract extension, Garner, because he's been incredible this season. But I'm going to caveat that with the fact that we need to find a replacement this summer for him as well. So I think he's good for the squad. He's good to be in and around the squad, and he's been like probably our best player this season on the pitch. But at 35, we can't be relying on him every game next season. He's a player who could potentially play till he's 40 at a high level, because he just looks so fit at the minute, doesn't he? But, you know, the club need to be... We've done this before, haven't we, where we've relied on players and then they've fallen off a cliff and you're knackered then. So I'd say keep, but find a replacement.
Yeah, I think you're extending his contract by a year, similar to what we offered with Decore. Obviously, he's probably someone else we have to discuss in a minute as well. Yeah, I mean, he's been crucial. He's been our best player by a mile. I think if you've seen him against Wolves, I've never seen anybody run as much as that lad does.
Yeah.
And it was the epitome of his game. I don't know how we didn't get the yellow card, by the way, against Wolves at the weekend, because he was committing so many fouls and throwing himself into it. But that's the kind of player he is. He's a bundle of energy. And again, I think you need to take his age out of what you feel towards him, to be honest with you, because if you said to me that he was 28, it doesn't make any difference to me, because I think you'd still get that same level of performance, and that's a massive plus point to keep an hold of him. So yeah, absolutely in the keep him category. And yeah, I'd say a year, give him another year. Again, like Decore, whatever happens with his situation, and Ashley Young as well, you get into that age where you're like, well, can these lads keep going? And you know, there's a stereotype towards aging players now, which I think has completely changed. When players, and when strikers in particular, in Premier League years, you know, go back in the day to your famous 80s years, right? You get strikers staying on for a long time. You get strikers staying on perhaps for the similar length of time as a goalkeeper. A goalkeeper going to 40 wasn't a rarity back then. Premier League season with fitness and development in that sort of regard, players were retiring earlier. You were getting players retiring at 33, 34, 35, or at least stepping down to a different level. Nowadays, it's not a rarity. Look at Vardy at Leicester.
Yeah.
you've got players there where if you didn't know their age, you'd be like, there's no way, he's going to be at his prime. He's going to be maybe his early 30s or his late 20s at the peak of his career. That's the way things. So I think you need to take that out of your mind when you're looking at a player like Ajisagay, and he's 35 years old. He certainly just doesn't look 35 as a footballer.
No, you're right. It's weird, isn't it? You sort of we're not getting that stage now where players primes are 27 to 30. It can be really mixed. Like players can hit the peak at like 23, 24 now, or into the 30s. Right,
look
another player.
Just look at the level of fitness Ashley Young's got. 39. Yeah. Ashley Young's older than me, and I look like I'm about 20. I look like I could be his dad. He's that. He looks like a kid when he comes on as well. And again, he's somebody else who's gone by the wayside. I think he's been decent when he's played as well. He hasn't let us down.
Does he get a new deal?
No, because I'd like to see Patterson come to fruition at right back, and I think if you're keeping Seamus on for another year as well, which I guess out of sentiment that's probably going to happen. I don't think he's going to retire at the end of this season. I think he'll try and squeeze another year out of him, which Moyes would entitle him to. I think that you keep 3 right backs, and one of them's 39. When one of them's going on to 40, the other one's going to be 37 by the end of this year. That's why I think you don't need 2 of them who are in the latter stage of their professional careers.
I'm kind of looking at it the other way around. I think I would release Coleman and probably give Young another year purely because he can play left back as well. I don't mean starting left back. I mean as cover last 10 minutes or injury cover if we needed. Just a player who can play across different positions in the squad. You stick him out wide as well. So I mean, I know to give a 40-year-old another 1-year deal, it seems a bit weird. But I can
it's not though that Les, you've just purely made my point there. As in take his age out your mind. But like most of us, including myself, you're not going to do that. You're going to think, wow, we're still giving we're keeping somebody a millionaire who's 40 years old. That doesn't stick well in your mind, does it? And you're putting that first before you're actually watching play. Yeah,
that's true. Interesting ones, couple of goalies then. João Virginia and Azimir Begovic.
Well, I think you just keep Virginia, don't you? I mean, he's half decent. He's reliable.
I'm not sure. He's 25 now, and I think he's at that age where you've got the lad over at Liverpool, haven't you, as well? He's in the same bracket. He's about 25, and
true. Yeah,
they need to find a club really, because Jordan Pickford. I mean, unless we sell him, which hopefully we won't. No one's displacing him. It's like what we had with Southall for years, whereby keepers would come through and they were never getting a look in. So they've got to get off. I think in terms of the goalie with Virginia, we do have Harry Tyra and Billy Krellin, 2 young goalies who were doing well in the lower leagues on loan. I think for me, I'd probably let Virginia go find a club and sort of make his own career as a first teamer, and then probably rely on them a little bit more. So so Billy Crellin's at Accrington till June 30th, and Harry Tyler's at Blackpool until June 30th. So I think I'd probably look to one of them to come in, and maybe keep Begovic because he's like the old hand there, isn't he? And probably go into a coaching role.
Yeah, I think that's a good shout there with Begovic. I mean, it's interesting, isn't it? You've got players there who are over the age of 30 or late in the late 30s who you think, they could probably do a job just in and around the squad. Like Seamus Coleman won't be leaving Everton until he retires to get his pension, let alone as a footballer. I don't think Seamus. Well, there'll be a job there for him regardless.
Yeah, definitely.
I'm all for, which is quite surprising because I can't stand Everton with sentiments, but he's one I'd give him a pass for that, given everything he's done to the extent of as a leader. And people have said I've massively contradicted myself, which I have, but him, I'd make an exception, same as I would with Baines. But just to go off on one side there, Leighton Baines, watching him giving Moyes advice, heartwarming thing and the most most pleasurable image of football, anything in football that I've watched. See, you do at Wolves as well. You've got them
Yeah.
sitting there telling them like about different things, and they're talking to each other. I'm like, what's happened here?
No, never,
You would think that has happened. So
never saw
it's
that
great
coming.
to see what he's doing. I just think the only other thing where you start going against that is when people start shouting for him to be the next Everton manager, if and when Moyes eventually leaves. But yeah, I think going back to the goalkeepers, you probably like Carlo Nash. you just keep Begovic hanging around there,
Yeah.
and have to play coming into play if he has to. He's 37. Look, he'll do a job for you. Do you know what I mean? He's a lovely guy, by the way. He's done quite a bit of work with him
Yeah.
at BBC. He's such a nice guy, and obviously he doesn't want to retire yet. Goalkeepers can stick out as long as they want, really, can't they? So yeah, I'll take back what I said about with the Virginia, because I think he's got too much of a comfortable career if he still wants to stay at Everton at the age of 25. Like you say, you want to be banging down the door saying, look, if I'm not staying here, I've got no chance of going past Pickford. Then, yeah, I've got to look at going wherever else I can, the
Yeah.
best possible deal that I can get. And I don't know, I mean, when's his contract up? The same as June 30. It's interesting, less some of the prices that are being put on that transfer website.
Yeah. 800k.
It's still got Begovic is 300k. And it's got who was it looking at there? Virginia's 800k and Ashley Young's 500k. I mean, I've no idea with that. It's because you start totaling that up, you're thinking, do you know what? We could sell these for a few million quid here.
Yeah, we could get some money in there.
Get the contract signed and then start selling them like it's Football Manager.
Right, a few more to go. Michael Keane.
Keep.
Yeah,
he's still useful.
Yeah.
But having said that, I mean, what people will be saying after I've said that is you've got O'Brien there who looks destined to turn into a centre back. Then you've got three really good centre backs there in that side. So people would say let go of him. I'm always a fan of having four centre backs.
Yeah,
So
same.
I don't think it's going to be a priority for that. I don't want it to be a priority for Everton to go out and having to get another centre back, unless of course the nightmare happens and Branthwaite ends up leaving.
Yeah. I think there's a few moving parts around that Michael Keane one, isn't there?
Yeah.
I agree. You need four centre backs, defo. And yeah, if we release him, then it becomes a priority to get another one in. Don't want to be really wasting time and resources on buying a centre back, do we? So
if you do that as well, if you let go of him and then Branthwaite is sold, you've only got two centre backs then.
Exactly, and we don't know what they play together like. Because the thing with Jake O'Brien, I noticed when I've seen him, he's very, very right-footed. Now, the reason that Branthwaite and Tarkowski work is because Branthwaite's very left-footed, and Tarkowski plays on the right. So there's an imbalance. O'Brien is not a like for like with Branthwaite, even though they look similar. Yeah, I think I'm with you on that. Decore, do we offer him a different deal on reduced terms? I could see why we would.
I mean, he's the conundrum here, isn't he? Really, because it's a true reflection of what he's like as a player. Do you know what I mean? Because you're like offering him a contract, you're thinking, have we wasted that, or have we actually done a smart piece of business, giving him an extra year or whatever it is that he wants? Same as when you watch him on the pitch and you think, how on earth is he a footballer? / oh, he's played really well and scored the crucial goal for us.
Yeah, it's mad.
I'd want to keep him, but it's massive on the terms you can do so. His salary, is it not one of the highest as well? His salary.
Yeah, that's the thing. I think that's the thing, isn't it? He couldn't play on those terms. Like we couldn't keep him on the same wages.
He's 32. He's full of energy. If we're going with the positives, Everton. I mean, it'd be a shrewd bit of business there if Everton have said he's going and then got him back signed and got him at like a reduced price on a 2-year deal or an extra year or whatever. That might well be the case. Well, I'd want to keep him on new circumstances, which I don't think a footballer's ever going to be a fan of. So he'll probably go if you're going to do that. So I don't think we'll see him again after that Newcastle game on the last day of the season. But I'd like to keep him.
Yeah, I think so. I think keep him for that sort of but use him as we should do now. I think coming on last 25, not starting games as many games as he does. But as you say, he might not like that. So ball's in his court, really. Right, couple of strikers now. Rodger, Armando Rodger.
I've sympathy with him. I mean, it's an obvious no immediately. It's an instant no when you say that. But what I would add to that is I do have a lot of sympathy with the lad, because quite clearly he needs a home. From what we've seen, very little we've seen of him. He's somebody who's a physical attribute. I mean, again, the scenario that's going on there, though, Calvert-Lewin's probably going to leave. You're going to have to go and get another striker. Is loaning him going to be the answer? He's only 23. He was at Southampton, wasn't he? I don't think he pulled up any trees there. No, I wouldn't. Certainly wouldn't try and sign him permanently. And I'd probably, if we're going on loans, you're only allowed 2 loans, aren't you, from the Premier League? Yeah, he's got to go.
Yeah, he's too injury prone, as he's shown with us. It's a waste of a loan, really, isn't it? Right, your favourite, Jack Harrison, 28-year-old Jack Harrison. I didn't realise he was 28.
You're happy with 10 million, Jack Harrison, shall we say?
I knew you'd bring that up.
That's always going to stick, Les. That is always going to stick.
That's fair enough. I deserve it.
Yeah, despite him scoring a jammy goal at the weekend there, when he actually played half decent. Apart from the fact that he still takes corners and set pieces for some reason. No, he goes back to Leeds. Leeds are probably going to be a Premier League side as well, so no doubt he'll come back to Goodison next year and score and have the game of his life. But no, Jack Harrison's got to go.
It's got opening day of the season defeat all over it, that hasn't it? Everton play Leeds and Jack Harrison scores the winner.
and him doing the old calm down celebration. You know what I mean? Like Richarlison. Do you know Richarlison is just like pick the ball up, run back to the halfway line, and just like that sort of thing towards to fans. So I'm all for that. If he comes back and he scores against us, be like, yeah, I'm happier that you've gone rather than I don't care if you score against us.
yeah, I see what you mean there. On the other wing, Jesper Lindstrom.
Take another loan. Yeah, he's flattered to deceive at times. He looked decent at times. I mean, you've got that loan option again. It's all right, isn't it? Because abroad's different. You can have more than 2 away from different countries.
Yeah.
He's... I'm going to say no. I think we can go a bit better. He looks like he's got all of the intention to be one of the best Everton players he could possibly be. I don't think he's got that talent. I don't think I've seen him being able to whip the ball in, which is essential. I mean, we speak about it quite a lot, don't we? And in the same case with Harrison there, you need wing players who can whip a ball in or have a different attribute, i.e. and dive. And dives on the wing. How often do you see him having to cross a ball? He doesn't. He runs. He runs at the opposition. He tries to create, and he does create from other positions. You've got McNeil coming back as well. We've had so many debates on whether you put him on the right-hand side to whip a left-footed ball in. So, no, Lindstrom goes back to Napoli. 20 million value, by the way.
Yeah, I know, I saw that. I think I'd take another loan, purely because it could be he's taking a season to bed in. He could come back a different player next season.
He's too slight for me as well, Leslie. He's too... Not a stereotype. Well, I am stereotyping the Premier League. He just looks like he'd be flicked off the ball.
Yeah. I think
a bit like Dale Fayou without being Dale Fayou.
Yeah, without that pace. Yeah. I don't know. I think I would. I think I'd still go for another loan. Finally, then Carlos Alcaraz, option to buy. Just buy him.
Just a no-brainer, isn't it? Really, you haven't got much else to say about that. Looks like he knows Everton. Looks like he wants to be Everton. He's an Everton player through and through in terms of what you want from him, what you'd expect from him, just throwing himself into everything. Looks like he wants a scrap as well, where he'll probably get sent off in completely irrelevant situations. He's Everton through and through, and I would like to think that that's probably the first bit of business Everton do. when that contract ends on the 30th of June on loan.
Yeah, I think so, because I mean, if we don't sign him, someone in the Premier League will, and that will bite us on the arse, because he's a very, very good player, as he's shown.
Funny you mention that, because he's probably the one of the very, very few really good pieces of business that Kevin Thelwell's gone and done. So he waves goodbye to us, having left us with Carlos Alcaraz, which is really funny, isn't it? When he's gone and lost his job or decided to leave by mutual, in a mutual way with the football club, and he's left us with a player that is full of excitement. Can't wait to see him with him die. That's going to be really, really.
That could be magic.
Yeah, it could be magic. It could really be magic, and it could be the trajectory that Everton look like they've got onto with Moyes, like we mentioned at the start of the show.
Yeah. It's going to be a big summer, but yeah, I think you're right. I think he should be the first signing we make. Obviously, you look at the players and you think, we'll just get rid of all of them because they've got us in this position. They're not very good. But realistically, the club are going to have to keep.
I was going to say, I think that the second show, probably a part 2 of this, is which ones that have still got contracts who you want to sell. Because I think
that's true. Actually,
I think that's when we go through a situation where you're like, sell.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, how many players there have we said we keep? About half a dozen, was it? Did you write down?
So, yeah.
I didn't write them down. Yeah. So I mean, you've got a lot of work to go and do there in the summer, haven't you? And we do rely heavily on the loan system.
But yeah, that's when we're at our best. Moyes getting the loans in. I'm all for it. Right, that's been it for this week.
It's the old Bill meme, isn't it? Fancy joining Everton on loan life.
Defo. Right, we'll leave it there, Dave. Anyone listening or watching on YouTube, let us know what you think about those players who the contracts are coming to an end. Whether you agree or disagree with me and Dave, just let us know what you think, because I think it's a dead interesting conversation to have as well, what people's sort of opinions are of these players, and whether they can do a job for us next season or not. Dave, what we've got coming up this week? We've got the byline tomorrow, subs weekly, all that. Keeper?
Yeah, Warren's back. I think Rodger's joining him as well to talk about in detail what's going on with the changes at boardroom level, because he's well into all that, isn't he? He's a bit of an expert on all that with CEOs and everybody else with DOFs and all the different titles and names that Everton look like they're going to go and do, getting a new CEO in and whatnot, and the club completely changing the idea it's got in terms of recruitment. In terms of having a team which looks like it'll be headed by Moyes. So that'll be a fascinating listen to see what Rodger's got to say, because he's over at Cheltenham. That's why he's not on today. So he's teasing us before he comes on and gives his expert opinion and all that. And then what we got? We're back to normal, aren't we, with a weekend game that's not Saturday night at 8 o'clock. So be preview from Matt. There'll be mailbag back, of course, as well, and subs weekly.
Yeah, lovely stuff. So loads coming up as ever. Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. We'll catch you next time. Up to Toffees.
Hi everyone, it's Rodger. Sorry can't be with Les and Dave today on Blue Monday, but in my absence I wanted to send some Cheltenham tips, because you may not know it. It's the Cheltenham Festival this week. Massively enjoyable week for those of us who like the GGs. It's a bit like Christmas for grown-ups. So I've got an each-way selection, one for each day. First day, Tuesday, in the 320, I've gone for Joyeuse. That's Joyeuse, around a 10-1 shot in the 320, the Mare's Hurdle. She was very impressive at Newbury, winning the William Hill Hurdle, and has since been supplemented for this, trained by Nikki Henderson. Then on Wednesday in the Champion Chase, the Queen Mother Champion Chase, the feature race of the day, 4 o'clock on Wednesday, I like Solness, Solness, about a 7 or 8 to 1 shot. Really impressive front-running winner of the Dublin Chase at the Dublin Racing Festival last month, trained by Joseph O'Brien. And then in the Stayers Hurdle, a feature race on the Thursday, the 4 o'clock, I quite like the Wall Park. Again, another each-way chance, trained this time by Gordon Elliott and recently bought by JP McManus, probably a 7 or 8 to 1 shot. but a good strong chance against a favourite Teupo, which nobody seems to be particularly keen on, and even money. So each way opportunities for the Wall Park there. And then finally, in the Getting Out Stakes on Friday, the last race of the festival, the Martin Pipe Handicap Hurdle, I've gone for Wodhoo. That's WODHOOH. This horse has winning Cheltenham form on New Year's Eve. In fact, won at the course and distance winning form, very valuable, and beat, in fact, Joyeuse that day to maintain an unbeaten record over hurdles, 5 or 6 to 1 shot. So there you go. That's 4 each way chances. Good luck, enjoy, and hopefully maybe 1 or 2 of them can run into a play.